One of the biggest challenges I see with people doing inner child work or working with parts of self is they're not perceiving the interaction as though it's a real relationship. Like it's a conversation, it's a way of being present with more like it would be another person, where the person or the part of self actually has an opinion, it has a comfort level, it has agency, it has its own answers to the questions you might ask or its own interpretation of the situation. It's very easy to think of or approach these types of working with yourself, like inner child part, different parts of self, where it's like, what's the technique? What's the thing to do to make this part of me feel safe or essentially do what I want it to do, right? That's always the challenge. It's like, well, I want this part of me to feel safe so that I can move on with my life or so that I can stop feeling this resistance within me. And that's a little tricky because, of course, why else would you be doing some type of emotional work, right? Except that you want to feel some relief or you want to move forward in some way. But the way of interacting is really an art form and it really is relational. And so I see this very often, whether I'm facilitating or when people are describing their process to me and the sticking point where they're facing a challenging point. And what happens a lot is we are using the correct words and even, a nice sounding concept. Like, I'm really trying to get this part of me to feel safe and I'm trying to approach it really gently or with like loving language or whatever. But that doesn't necessarily matter all that much for the relationship with this part of yourself, what it is experiencing, what it's going through, the trauma it might have experienced. It's not necessarily going to just come and start talking to you or just relax and feel okay because you're saying nice words or you're being gentle. Right? There's a whole nuance to this that I think gets a lot simpler if you think more in terms of relating to a living, breathing being, right? It may not be breathing physically, but if you think of the way you interact with a human, there's an innate understanding that there's a little more to this interaction than, okay, what do I say to this person? And then they're just going to like me or they're just going to feel comfortable. Right? If you have a tense interaction with someone that's been going for like 20 years, you can't just say, okay, I'm going to be nice to you now, and I expect you to just like forgive me or just be cool with that, be cool with me, or this interaction should just be whatever I think it should be now. That doesn't really work. And when people do that with you, you can feel like, no, it's not that simple. Like you can't just say a nice thing to me or say I'm sorry and expect that this interaction is going to go a certain way. So if you are aware of that when you're doing inner child work, working with parts of self, that, this inner child, for example, might not have had much communication with you. This might be the first time you're even trying to get in contact. And I've seen that many times. And so we can't assume or expect that this, part of yourself is just going to be like talkative and responsive and be happy to see you even, right? Now, there might be a need for the repair of the relationship, but it might, and I've seen this more than once, much more than once, where there's some contact made and this younger part of yourself is like, you've not been paying attention to me for 30 years. Or it's expressing anger and upset, like, how dare you come back? Right? We have to actually allow space for that. And on some level, understand that that can happen, right? Like it's not like the technique of finding a part of self and I say these things, or I do these things and everything just works out, right? It's a facilitated, if you're working with someone, or even with working with yourself, this is an interaction. Again, the more you can go in with that energy, with that attitude, it's going to shift the dynamic a lot because you will not be in the driver's seat of I am trying to fix something, which is always the challenge, right? There's always some layer of that. And usually the more we can become aware that that's what we're doing, and the more we can shift it from I'm trying to make something happen, I'm trying to quote unquote do inner child work so that I can be more successful. That's very different than there's a disconnection, there's a fragmentation within me, and in order to reestablish wholeness here, communication, this is going to look like an interaction that could go in all sorts of different ways and could take time and could require some assistance because, oh, this isn't going the way I thought this was going to go. But if you confront that, you're more likely on the right track than if you're just doing some sort of process. Like, okay, I'm just visualizing my inner child and I'm expecting this certain result, or I'm doing some sort of parts work and I'm just trying to be like open and compassionate, but like nothing's really happening. Yeah, because there might be a lot more to the conversation than that, right? Just like in the real world. It helps to be kind of friendly and open, but one, you can't actually fake that, right? You can say like, hey, I'm a nice guy. You can tell me whatever you want, but people can feel if that's not actually true. And parts of you can feel if you're not actually ready for this conversation or you're not actually open to what it has to say. So give yourself like some grace here and some understanding that this is a bit more of an art form than it's often presented to us, right? And it's not just a technique. It's not just a thing you do for you to get what you want. It is a relationship like it is with an actual child or an actual human being who might talk or react or have a different perspective on things. In fact, it certainly does, which is why there's fragmentation in the first place, right? A part of you that got disconnected in some way because of something you went through when you were younger is going to see the world differently than you as an adult do now, for example. And so you're going to have to find ways of being present and interacting. And okay, what does this part of me respond to? Does it have anger at me? Can I handle that? Oh, that was a little overwhelming for me. That's when you might need some support. So I hope this helps get your mind rolling and thinking about this in a different way than perhaps you might have depending on what you've come across. Again, I've seen this often. Check out in the description, I have an ebook that talks about this a little bit more. It's short, but gives some practical tools, as well as I do a lot of this work, this kind of conversation and this approach to techniques like tapping is part of my group work as well as my one-on-one work, obviously. If you're interested in that, you can check out the description below, but I would love any questions, comments about this. Happy to do more videos or go live talking about this more because it's super fascinating. And when the stories or the interactions start coming up, it's a very rich thing, right? It's facilitating a real conversation and not just like, oh, do this, and then that's going to heal your inner child. It's like very nuanced. And so I'd love to have some stories, thoughts, interactions, and your own perspectives on this as well. So hope it helps and I hope to talk to you soon. Thanks.